Hey, Liam here at LearnTheHarmonica.com to tell you all about the Lee Oskar Melody Maker harmonica. Now, the idea behind this harmonica is to allow you to play standards from pop, country, jazz, rock, reggae, Latin music in an easy and accessible way, but with great expression and emotionality in your playing as well. So there are certain issues with the standard layout of harmonica that make it difficult to play a lot of songs expressively and make them sound authentic and emotional. So we're going to look at what those problems are and how this tuning aims to solve that problem for you. I'm also going to go through some song tabs with you and some simple scales. In the description, I'm going to put a link to lots more scales and songs so that you can really explore this tuning yourself, as well as a link to buy the harmonica if you'd like to get hold of a Melody Maker. So let's have a look at the note layout. So the easiest way to think about how these notes are set out is to compare them with a standard harmonica. So most diatonic harmonicas or blues harmonicas are tuned to what's called Richter tuning. Now that's the tuning you'll be used to for playing blues and maybe rock and country and other styles of music. So let's have a look at that standard tuning and then our Melody Maker tuning, because there's only 3 altered notes. I've got one of each harmonica so that we can compare them, and I'll play these for you. If we look at the map, you'll notice the 3 below is tuned up a tone from the standard harmonica. So on a standard Richter tuned harmonica, the only repeated note on the instrument is the 2 draw, which is repeated on the 3 below. Now on a Melody Maker, that note is tuned up a tone, so that you have got that missing note which you'd normally have to bend to get. Now, if that was the only note that was different from the standard diatonic tuning, you would call that Paddy Richter. That's a tuning that was invented and popularised by Brendan Power, and it's jokingly called Paddy Richter because it's really useful for Irish tunes. But the idea behind the Lee Oskar Melody Maker is to make playing even further up the harmonica more intuitive and more expressive. We'll talk about how it does that as we go on. But in terms of the note layout, you'll notice the 5 draw is raised a semitone or a half step. So on our normal tuned harmonica, we've got this note. And then on the Melody Maker, so that note is changed, and also an octave up on our 9 draw, the same thing is done. So that's the same note an octave up, and again it's raised a half step. So what does it mean to change these notes? Well, one big thing it means is your default position, your home key, is 2nd position. So starting on the 2 draw. Because we've raised a couple of the notes, that means we've got the major scale starting on the 2 draw without bending and without overbending. So why would you do that? Well, it's all about expressivity, emotionality in your playing. So you can play the major scale in 1st position on a standard harmonica, and you can find those notes and play melodies with it. But it's hard to get expression on those notes, especially the notes that you really want to get expression on. So the root, 3rd, 5th, and the 7th, those notes are pretty much impossible to bend unless you get a specially valved instrument or you change the note layout. So the idea here is that we can then expressively play those notes. So instead of them just playing as they are, we can bend them, we can add vibrato. So it's a much easier, accessible way of playing expressive melodies around that major scale. One example of this would be Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Now, most of the melody could be played in 2nd position on a standard harmonica because it doesn't need that sharpened note on the 5 draw, except there is one note where you will need that in the melody. So you can't play it on a standard harmonica. So there, crucially that note. So it goes like this, the fourth, the fifth. You couldn't play that note on a standard harmonica. You'd have to overblow to get it, which is difficult. It's difficult to do it in tune, but also to play it and play it with expression is really difficult. Whereas here, we're just able to do it. Another good example would be something like Edelweiss from The Sound of Music. Again, there's one note that wouldn't normally be possible, or you'd have to overblow to get it. So that note there, again, would not be possible on a standard harmonica. So if you played it in first position, you could get the notes, but you wouldn't get the same expressive capacity, because most of those notes I can bend and I can play vibrato on them. So it's all about how you can voice those notes and how you can add expression to them. The Melody Maker I'm using in this video contains almost all the same notes as a key of C standard harmonica, but it's labelled a G Melody Maker. That's because it's intended to be played in second position. So from the 2 draw upwards to the 6 blow, that's where our major scale sits. So I can understand why they've labelled it in G, because it's really intended to be played in that key. So just bear in mind, if you're going to buy one of these, that you are buying the harmonica labelled in the key of second position. It does actually say on the harmonica itself, once you get it out, second is the key of G. And on the other end, it does say first position. But you'll notice that it says A minor and it's the Dorian mode. So it's not intended to be played that way, although technically it's possible. I'll label the product links in the description as clearly as possible so you know what you're buying. I should say that it is possible to bend the 5 draw down. So if you wanted to get the flat 7, it is still available and you won't have to overblow in order to fill in that note. It's not possible to bend the 9 draw down. That's because the 9 blow is a higher note. So you can bend the 9 blow, but you can't bend the 9 draw. There is a way around this, which is a sort of halfway house for this tuning, and I've been talking to Lee Oskar himself about this tuning in preparation for this video, and he went through what he actually does with his Melody Maker harmonicas.
But if you do the 9 draw, if I raise that a semitone, then I don't have to blow bend. So personally myself, I will tune my Melody Maker 9, the 9 down a semitone like it would be on a major diatonic, because I can get in my blow bend that way. But for commercially and all that, because a lot of people, I want to make sure the product serves the purpose of just every person is having fun and playing different genres of music, that it made more sense that I would, let's say if it's a G Melody Maker, that instead of being an F, you have the F sharp, both on the 5 draw and the 9 draw.
It does rely on bending technique, blow bending technique, but if you're able to do that, that could give you the best of both worlds. Lee Oskar explained to me how he came up with this great concept in a really interesting story about his own experiences as a player and a recording artist.
I'm going to tell you a story that's, I wouldn't say I'm embarrassed today. I was years ago. So I was called up to play a session for Burt Bacharach, and he was producing some stuff with Roberta Flack. What a sweetheart this guy is. So the melody, I was kind of doing overblows, but as even now, I never perfected it. And back then, I was toying at it. And my intonation, with Burt Bacharach, and I'm a stickler for intonation myself, I just couldn't nail that note. And he was so patient playing the piano. I mean, that must have taken up more time than ever. I mean, I walked out with a chill under my shirt because I never did the tune. That was one of the landmarks of really feeling necessary.
Now, you don't have to play this harmonica in second position, and one of my favourite things about this tuning is that it creates different ways of playing the other positions. It creates quirks and things that you don't get with the normal tuning of harmonica. So the change of note layout has the effect of shifting scales along one position. So what I mean by that is, for example, normally second position on a harmonica would give you the mixolydian mode, because you've got the flattened seventh note. That's one of the key notes that we've changed with this tuning. Now, by changing the notes, it means that our mixolydian mode is now in third position. So you could start on the 1 draw or the 4 draw and get the mixolydian mode where normally you wouldn't get that. So this means that you can play songs and scales in different positions with different expressionality, and certain things will become easier, certain things will become harder, but what they'll definitely do is become different. And for me, different is always an opportunity for exploration and trying out new things. So I've been really enjoying trying out some of those things. So for example, something like the Latin jazz song Tequila works really well in third position on this harmonica. So as you move through the different positions and scales, you may want to or need to use bends. So this isn't a harmonica where you'll never want or need a bent note. It's not a way of avoiding that, but it certainly changes how each position and scale voices on the instrument. Fourth position on a standard harmonica would usually give us the natural minor. So that note would be starting on your 3 draw full step bend or your 6 draw. Now here we've got the 3 blow tuned up a half step, so we can start there. And because of the change to the 5 draw as well, we've instead got the Dorian mode, which we'd normally have in third position. So a good example of Dorian would be Scarborough Fair, the traditional English folk tune. Now that sounds really nice on this harmonica starting on the 3 blow. So again, we've got expression on a lot of those notes, and it just sits in a different place. For me, it's a great way of getting you out of your comfort zone, out of the whatever boxes and confines you've tended to put yourself in as a player. You might think it's better, you might think it's worse, but for me, it's always worth exploring. That's what music and that's what creativity are all about. One more position to mention for you, fifth position. So this is where our tonal center is the 2 blow or the 5 blow or the 8 blow. Now on our Melody Maker, fifth position gives us the relative minor scale. So this is a really interesting way of playing minor scales and tunes based around the minor scale. So for example, Stairway to Heaven. Ain't No Sunshine is another one that's really easy to play in fifth position. I've included loads more song tabs in different positions and lots of scales to get you started as well in the links in the description. These harmonicas are made in 9 different keys currently. I've got a set here They are labelled with the blue labels. There's actually only technically 8 different keys as such, because we've got a high C and a low C, or a standard C. That means that you've only got 8 different key options. I did ask Lee about this, and he said they started out with just a handful of the most common keys, and then they expanded to this range because of popular demand. I suppose maybe they haven't been asked to expand to the final few keys, but I would hope that in future they do, especially because the idea behind these harmonicas is to make things as easy and accessible as possible. I reckon there's probably demand out there for those missing keys. So that's the Lee Oskar Melody Maker. For me, it's a really interesting tuning. It's a great opportunity and context in which to try out different things. It certainly has its strengths in terms of expressive capability in second position. Be aware that any change of note layout will have benefits and downsides. So you'll find certain things that you would want to do normally are going to be more difficult because of this. That's just the nature of the beast. That will always be the case when you alter a tuning. For me, it's worth getting hold of some of these just to try out and to see how it helps you maybe with your songwriting, your soloing, and I know that for me it's really made me think about the harmonica in a different way. As I said in the description, there's loads of free tabs to popular songs in different positions, as well as scales in different positions as well. So do check them out, as well as the product links in the description if you'd like to go and buy one of these harmonicas. As well as my tabs, I've got some play-along videos for you. That means you can play along with me using your Melody Maker to some really great pop tunes. Check the links in the description for those as well. I'll see you again soon. Cheers.